Token usage. What patterns are you seeing, AJ? Just to stand you for a sec.
Back to my point of just being a product-focused org, I'd say it depends on the organization. We've had a pretty significant top-down mandate, specifically from our CTO, to really get into the vibe coding applications and the idea that that's the way that our engineering organization is going to be headed into the future. So we've seen the token usage in our engineering department has, one, exploded, but if you look at the usage by person, you definitely see this sort of haves and have-nots, and you see some power users.
Can you say more about that? So you can look through and see who on the team is going nuts, right?
Yeah, you can. Now, the thing that we don't have perfect visibility on today is what they're doing with it. So right now, still in that like exploratory phase of, we're encouraging folks to use tokens, I think, similarly, and be sort of creative and go out there and conquer and understand sort of what the right balance is. I think the day will come eventually where we start saying, well, hey, why are you using so much? Like, have you actually shipped product? Is it high quality? Like, what features have you delivered on? We're still trying to figure out internally exactly how we define ROI, what the stage of how we go after those things, what good product versus not looks like. But we're like happy to be on that journey and not define those things quite yet.
Dana, what are you seeing?
We're encouraging it. We are tops down. We're asking everybody to do it. We have given everybody access. Obviously, our engineering organization uses the most, but when we look at sort of the non-engineers, we actually look similarly. We can see who uses tokens and how they use their tokens. And there are some super users. And when you look at those super users, maybe there's not like a direct connection, but there are some super users where you're like, yeah, they actually did spin up that analysis and that dashboard and that decision and whatnot. And so you can start seeing those who are using it a lot and some of the impacts that they're doing. It's not a direct ROI by any means, but the token usage across the board is very different. Heaviest with engineers, and in the top to the bottom, you can see who's really active in it.
Other than engineering, who would you say, which department is up there?
Our chief growth officer. A lot of our executive team and our leaders at the company are the ones using the most, because I think that they're ones sort of leading at the front, and we are being asked as leaders of the company, and I'm sure all of you will be asked too as leaders of your company, to go ahead and use the tokens.
I remember OpenAI, they had their user summit and it had the top 50 users of all the tokens. And it reminded me of that scene from The Big Short where the mortgage guys are in there and he's like, I can't believe they're confessing. He's like, they're not confessing, they're bragging about it. So it's funny that we've gotten to this point that it's a status symbol of how many tokens you can actually consume. Micah, are we just going to invent new metrics for ROI?
It's interesting because from my perspective, the metrics really haven't changed, right? Our ways of measuring hard and soft ROI, the specific metrics you would use for measuring that ROI are not that different than for anything we've done in the past.
Really?
The problem of there are different types of adoption metrics, certainly, but like true ROI, not really. But I think this is a common thread with pretty much all AI-related topics where it's like, how do I, if you can think about build versus buy considerations, et cetera, it's like just because the word AI is in there, people are like, what do I do? And the reality is that there's a lot of very transferable knowledge from kind of everything we've been doing in the past. There will be some small tweaks, and in some cases, you'll need to think about things slightly differently. But yeah, at the end of the day, when people are calculating ROI, it's based on the traditional factors.
If you have 90 days to go and work on something to improve next year, what is something that they can do?
Fortunately or unfortunately, right now, for many people, the answer is just start. Like your company almost certainly has a set of tools that are in place. If your teams aren't actively using them, it's the easiest place to get started, because the problem is that the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be for you to adapt. You can get expert help, which is what some organizations have chosen to do. It's like, we don't, especially when you start thinking about more scaled uses. So like individual use is one thing, whether that's going to be a Claude Code or Copilot or ChatGPT or similar, but scaled use where you're actually potentially building lightweight applications or larger scaled applications. A lot of companies struggle to get those for a first couple of those off the ground. So there's always a question about, does it make sense to bring someone in who has that expertise, and whether that's a new person or whether that's kind of an external, like a consulting firm or similar, it's valuable to at least think about it. But in terms of personal use, grab whatever tools your company has, give them a try. And also, to be honest, think about whether they're working for you, because many of those tools, they're not going to directly solve finance problems unless they've been set up correctly to do that.
I think that there actually has to be a mentality shift at your companies that just says you're going to go do it. Obviously, we say start, but where does that start comes from? Like, where does that activation energy comes from? And I actually think you need a mentality shift, starting with your leaders, whatever your executive team or your leaders, they need to go Because I think the teams need to know that like that you've pulled some of the red tape, that they have access to go do it. So I do think over the next 90 days, shift your mentality, start shifting your leadership, start pulling away the red tape.
If you don't have the data set up in a clean way that's
Great
actually
point.
readable and your metrics defined, do that. Like don't even get work started on the AI piece yet. Like define in your data schema, work with the data team, define your metrics so that you can layer AI on top and be productive from there. If the data scheme is already set up and you're empowered to do so, I think my like tactical steps, which we've started doing on the team, is a lot of the gating factors really is just time and energy of getting enabled on these tools. We've kind of done two things. One is to start just asking the question, especially from like a senior person to a more junior person. Every time a project or a task comes up, just ask the question, like, did you try this with Claude? Did you try this with OpenAI? And it just changes the mindset of they're so stuck in a cycle of just doing things in an Excel spreadsheet or their standard way of doing things, just sort of shifts the mindset. And the other one is just getting a little bit of like hackathons or idea sharing sort of venues, because a lot of folks are like, I want to, but I just don't know where to start. We just pile out everybody in the room together and say like, this is a no dumbs question, like safe environment. Let's all just like work on some projects, ask some questions, help each other. And that's the multiplier enablement event that I've seen actually really work for our team.
For a lot of organizations, getting the data right ends up being a major barrier in people's minds because they're like, well, I have to fully solve data governance, and it's basically the unified field theory of data at that point, right? When you start peeling the onion, what they quickly realize is that even if they don't have everything, there's at least going to be pockets of well-controlled, accessible data. And if you start there and you also layer on top of that some level of enthusiasm, like one person in a specific area, like within your function, who's excited to do this, where they have access to the data, they can actually move really, really quickly and help kind of your teams as a whole move faster.
Hey, founders and finance folks, you know how early on everything is fast and scrappy, and then suddenly equity gets messy? Spreadsheets break, grant docs pile up, lawyers are sending new forms and collecting fees. It all shows up right about when you're already swamped. Well, if managing your cap table feels like one more frustrating thing on a very long to-do list, you need to know about Pulley. Pulley makes equity management simple and stress-free. You can issue options, model dilution, complete 409As, and more, all in one place with support from real experts when you need it. So if you're raising, hiring, or scaling, Pulley keeps your cap table clean so you can stay focused on building, not wrangling spreadsheets. Learn more, request a demo at pulley.com/mostlymetrics. That is PULLEY.com/mostlymetrics.